Hi, welcome to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, the Target Individual Experience. Tonight, as I sit here wanting to do a video, didn't quite know what kind of video I wanted to do. So, as usual, I am doing some research, pulling up some articles, and I was going to do an article on totalitarianism and how it has been creeping its way into the United States government for decades now, and how those that want to create a totalitarian society here in the United States, they have been set into pieces. Excuse me. They've been set into pieces, okay, over decades in order to obtain just that. And I came upon this article, which is not the one that you see here, but I'm going to read this article first. But this article on Hannah Arendt, and it talks about how she explains how propaganda uses lies to erode all truth and morality, right? Insights from the origin of totalitarianism. You know, so I wanted to just do a video on that, but then I found this article on the LSD experiments. Okay, as a TI going through what we go through, being drugged, being assaulted, physically, psychologically, neurologically, biologically, and chemically, and how yet people refuse to believe that these things are still happening, okay, for whatever reason. But I guess I shouldn't say whatever reason, because I understand why. Because they're being conditioned and brainwashed into disbelieving that these things are still happening, right? So this is why when we explain what is happening to us to others, they always say, well, what makes you so important? And I used to get mad, but then I understand why now, so I don't even get upset at all. I'm kind of like, okay, because you see, they have created a condition in the minds of people that you have to be wealthy, rich, someone of who they would consider to be important, that the government will target them because they're important. Well, the truth is, the majority of people who have been experimented on by the US government over decades have been people who are what they would consider to be not important. Now, I consider everyone to be important. All right, you are important to yourself. You may be important to your family. I said maybe. You are important to your children. Okay, you're important to your significant. Maybe you're important to your significant other. And again, I use the word maybe in that aspect, because far too many of our family members and significant others have been conditioned to ignore what it is that we say. And so, being that as it may, I have to say maybe. Okay. What you will find is that there are some people who are not your family who would believe you, or at least have an open mind, because they understand the history. And most people don't understand history. Most people think that history doesn't repeat itself. And because they don't know history, they don't realize that these things have happened before historically. Okay? And so, we can never escape as TIs what has been done to us. Okay, that we are broken in a sense, and though we may try to put the pieces back together, okay, we will always be broken by what has been done to us. And no matter how much they try to repair the damage can never be repaired. Okay, no matter how much they may try to target you so bad, and then say, well, we'll stop if you pretend that, you know, it was just all in your head, or it was just a dream. Right. I'm coining the words on a jacket that this guy was wearing today. You know, because they want you to act as if they didn't do this. They want you to pretend as if, as they still continue to target you, that it's not real, right? That your mind somehow made this stuff up. Because it makes them sleep easy at night, knowing that you might not seek retribution. You might not seek vengeance on what they've done to you. Okay, so they got to convince you of that. Okay, but understand that they will never leave you alone, regardless. Okay, and as TIs, we don't seek vengeance or retribution. You know, I mean, we seek justice, right, for what has been done to us. And but they want to give that impression, because again, it is lies and it's propagated amongst themselves, so that they can go to the higher ups and keep us, in this program. But, I always talk about the technology that they use on us, right? The microwave and radio wave frequency, the microchipping for the purpose of remote monitoring. And, there is a history of all these things. And, the time they talk about being drugged, and again, people don't want to believe you, but I understand this, that part of American culture is a drug culture. Part of American culture is a rape culture. Part of American culture is a killing of unarmed black people culture. Part of American culture is the drugging of people culture. Part of American culture is the experimentation on non-consensual human beings culture, because it is part of all these things encompass American culture. Okay, and a lot of us are in the dark about these things because we don't understand history. The one thing they hide from us is true history. When you've been taught lies about history, and you see how they are changing the history books in front of our eyes, and there isn't any great pushback. This is the purpose of propaganda, the use of the technology to change people's mindset into a mindset in which those that are in power, okay, those that operate within in the shadows, want. And so when you have people like me who have been a victim of this, you begin to speak out. There is they will attack you. They will attack you heavily. They will try to blacklist you, blackmail you. But then you begin to understand that you waking up to the facts and you wanting to speak the truth about what's happening to you. And because they don't want you to speak the truth, because again, it's to protect themselves, not you. It's to protect themselves from any kind of accountability. They will, as they say to me all the time, we're going to destroy you, we're going to bury you. Okay, and which is fine. You might bury me, but I'm gonna bury you also with the truth. So that's fine with me. Okay, Do I have kids? It is important that I do speak up for their sake, because one day they might find themselves manipulated, being manipulated, and they will realize and understand what's going on. Okay, unlike many of us who have no clue, ignorant to the facts of what was happening, didn't know because a lot of it was covertly taking place to manipulate us in different ways, in hopes. I shouldn't say in hopes, but when the outcome has already been determined. Okay, so it doesn't. There was nothing that we can do. Okay, because again, when you're under control through these technologies and through manipulation, that you have no clue of. They already know the outcome. They've done enough research and studies to know exactly what the outcome will be. And if they set a certain outcome, that's what it will be. Okay, it isn't until you wake up and realize what's happening and understand the tactics, the methods, okay, that whatever outcome they may set forth, you can deviate that, particularly if it's geared towards a negative outcome, right? So that's the reason why they will attack you even more, because you have become awakened and you are fighting back against their programming. One of the things that they do to us as TIs is drug us. Okay, I think all of us TIs have come to that conclusion based on our experience of being drugged. But again, that's part of American culture. Okay, and they will create the mindset within people within the society to do the same. Okay, I always say that these people are projectionists. Okay, they project who they are onto the rest of us. That way, it takes the focus off of them and put it on, the people who they want to use as scapegoats. All right. And so we have to understand this. One of the things that many people didn't know is just how big, when the CIA was experimenting with LSD, just how huge that experimentation was. Okay. And so here in the article, it says a panel finds CIA broke law, defense record. Right? CIA infiltrated 17 area groups, gave out LSD. And I'm just going to read a little bit here. Okay. On June 11, 1975, the San Francisco Chronicle recounted a certain unholy night in 1957 when Wayne Ritchie, a former prison guard, unwillingly took LSD in a San Francisco bar. He was drugged without his knowledge and could barely stay conscious. Having lost all sense of reality, that night, Wayne Ritchie was a victim of a CIA operation that secretly tests psychotropic drugs on the American population. Midnight climax. Consent isn't necessary. Population testing of psychotropic drugs was known since 1975, when the Congressional and Commission hearing officially revealed to the public that the CIA and the Department of Defense had conducted experiments on human subjects, with or without their consent. And I don't even know why they put with in there. But again, we have to understand that a lot of newspaper or news agencies have been infiltrated by the CIA, Department of Defense, the FBI, so that they can write whatever stories they want them to write, and that they will include certain words, to minimize the seriousness of the crimes that they have been committed. Okay, so but we all know it's without their consent. And even if a person agreed to take drugs, I'm sure they've lied to them, you know, made it seem, as it's good, right? So even that in itself is deceptive. Okay. But most of the articles and inquiries about how the CIA drug its citizens focus mainly on New York City. Now, I've been saying this for many, many years about the CIA infiltration of the NYPD, and how, not just the NYPD, but all large metropolitan police departments or police agencies. This is how detectives are able to manipulate suspects, someone being accused, whether they did the crime or not, but they are able to extract false confessions, okay, using a series of tactics and methods which they have learned from by the CIA and its agents that they have infiltrated within those large metropolitan police departments. Okay. However, recent declassified documents, interviews, and a secret agent diary obtained from the Stanford University's archives shed new light on the extent of operations in San Francisco. Operation Midnight Climax. The specifics of the operation in San Francisco are due in particular to George H. White. White was an official at the Bureau of Narcotics, making headlines by dismantling trafficking network all over the world, but he was also a spy for the CIA. What did I just say? He oversaw the San Francisco branch of the MK Ultra program, which he nicknamed Operation Midnight Climax. He then formed a network of brothels. This network would become the breeding ground for subjects on whom drugs would be tested. The tests increased knowledge of the effects of drugs being used as weapons in the Cold War. Now, if you think these programs don't exist today, I'm here to tell you that you are wrong. Okay? Based on my experience, you are wrong. A decade-long nightmare. The way the topics were chosen varied. At one of the brothel in Telegraph Hill, girls would pick up guys from bars and restaurants in the North Beach and bring them back to do experiments and observation. White and his wife would also host dinners at their home, and guests could unwittingly be drugged through hallucinogenic cocktails. White described in his diary how he also injected doses of acid into unsuspecting victims on beaches, in bars, and in restaurants. I'd like to tell you something. This is what happened to me early on in my targeting. So I was invited to a house party by a college friend of mine. Okay. And I was speaking to a woman that I met there. It was her friend. She was cute, older than me. And, we had good conversation. We exchanged numbers. We would talk, And so I was invited to a party. Okay. And, the party was okay, what have you. Anyway, I think I left that night, driving home, feeling very, very strange. Somehow we kind of lost contact with each other. And then this friend of ours, same friend that introduced me to her, after being friends on Facebook, I saw her friend, the one that, I saw the name, right? And when I went to click, and I sent a friend request, when I went to click and look through her pictures, this person was totally different. She was not the person that I met. Same name now. Okay, and I'm saying to myself, how is it possible that this person knows two women with the exact same name? Right? And so, things begin to unravel for me. you know. And as I says, as a TI, you got to go back, if your memory uh, is still somewhat intact to where you can remember certain things and you can see discrepancies, you can strange things happening. It makes you really, really wonder. You know. So anyhow, um, so like I said, these things are still happening. Okay, they and law enforcement agencies, those within the police departments, there are people in there, officers in there, men and women, who are spies for the CIA and who engage in these types of behaviors still, whether it be for their own purpose or it's a program being run. Okay? So, from 1955 to 1965, the CIA agents effectively used prostitutes to lure unsuspecting customers from North Beach bars to their brothel, where they drugged the men with LSD and then watched them behind a faceless mirror. The operation lasted a couple of decades until John F. Kennedy forced CIA Director Allen Dulles to resign. All right, and I just, like I said, that's just one of the program, the sub programs under the LK Ultra banner. Okay. Okay. So now let's move on to another subject. Okay. It's U.S. police trainers with far right ties are teaching hundreds of cops. As a TI who've been targeted by the NYPD for decades, by members of the NYPD, I should say. So I'm not going to broad brush the entire NYPD and its officers, but I know in my targeting, okay, that NYPD police officers were involved in my targeting and also drugging me, and also legally implanted a microchip. So when I read these things, I'm not surprised. These things we know have been happening for decades. Not to say the implantations, but as far as drugging people, we know these things have been happening for decades, right? And on top of that, we have to deal with, particularly me as a black person, we have to deal with what I call race soldiers, okay, white supremacists, skinheads, okay? But they're no longer skinheads. They're called, what's the name? Well, they go by different names, right? Whether it be Patriots, Proud Boys, or what have you, but there are a lot of them that are on the police force, particularly the NYPD. Okay, I would say more than half, right? And it doesn't matter if they're white or black. It's the attitude, if the action towards black people and brown people that really shows that they are white supremacists. Okay. All right. So, one police instructor who have taught 560 officers in recent years has joined one extremist group and supported other far-right movement. Others have echoed QAnon and other fringe conspiracy theories on social media, a Reuters examination found. This story contains offensive language. I'm not going to read all of it, okay? The story contains offensive language. On social media, Richard Whitehead is a warrior for the American right. He has praised extremist groups. He has called for public execution of government officials he sees as disloyal to former President Donald Trump. In a post in 2020, he urged law enforcement officers to disobey COVID-19 public health orders from tyrannical governors, adding, We are on the brink of civil war. Whitehead also has a day job. He trains police officers around the United States. And he's just one. Okay? The Idaho based law enforcement consultant has taught at least 560 police officers and other public safety workers in 85 sessions in 12 states over the past 4 years, according to a Rutgers analyst of public records from the department that hired him. A Washington State Training Commission in 2015 temporarily banned Whitehead from advertising courses on its website because of instructional material that referred to a turban wearing police officer as a towel head and contained cartoons of women in bikinis, according to email from the commission to Whitehead that were reviewed by Reuters. Other marketing literature touted Whitehead's deception detection technique that, among other things, teaches officers not to trust sexual assault claimant as if they use the word we in referring to themselves and their assailant. The commission was responding to a student complaint citing offensive slurs and blatant misogyny. Whitehead said in an interview that the commission had given too much credence to one student's opinion and caused him to lose business. Since then, he said he has expanded the section of his course that caused that controversy, adding more pot-stirring material, including a slide that ridicules transgender people. Suspect is a trans fluid assigned male at birth wearing non-gender specific clothing, born Caucasian, but identified as a mountain panda, Whitehead said. Such babs are intended to push back against pressures on law enforcement to espouse left-wing views on gender or race. So I'm just going to end that there. Okay, and I talk about this all the time, especially as a TI, how they try to turn you into who they are. So the focus can be taken off of them and put on you, okay, the targeted individual. And many people out there are following these criminals blindly because, again, they carry a gun and a badge, and they act, particularly when they come into the black community, and act as if they're trying to help us, okay? But the truth and the reality tells us different. And this is why I said in my videos that, what surprised me, particularly as black people who participate in this, is that, we tend to trust those people, and then those are the same people who are killing us. Those are the same people who are framing our sons, our brothers, our uncles, our daughters, our mothers. These are the same people who will rape black women, right? The same people who would steal from us by criminalizing us, taking our possessions as if it was theirs. It's like a free-for-all with these people. And when black officers behave in this very same manner, I call them white supremacists, okay, because they are. And if you don't believe me, there's a book called Breaking Bad by Norm Stamper. Is it Breaking Bad or Breaking Badge? Norm Stamper. It's a book I have. All right, I have the Kindle version of it, and you gotta read it to really understand the mentality of police officers when they come out of the police academy. Okay, and not also that, but you also have the infiltration of white supremacists, and we know, when they say that, but we as black people know that, white supremacists have always been on the police department. Matter of fact, the police force start out with white supremacists. Okay, that was the purpose of the police department or the slave catcher was to catch runaway slaves. Okay, that was the inception of the police, the creation of the police force. Okay, so we're not ignorant. I'm trying to bring up Stamper here. This book is called Breaking Ranks. That's what it's called. The top cop expose of the dark side of American policing. Okay, so you guys should go out there and read that book. Okay, so regardless of, like I said, as a TI, these people, these officers, these people within the high ups of the security agencies, they will try to make you become who they are, because that way it takes the focus off of them and put it on you or others. Okay, remember, particularly in the Black community, okay, criminality is a conditioned state. It is one that is created through poverty, lack of opportunity, environmental warfare such as lead poisoning, one of trauma from the people who were supposed to protect you that are wearing a gun on the badge. And that's just a few examples. Okay, there are many, many more. Okay. So with that being said, let's move on. And I'm trying to keep each section short because it all coincides, with what I'm about to read. Okay. So this is Hannah Arendt, if I'm saying her name correctly, explaining how propaganda uses lies to erode all truths and morality. Insight from the origins of totalitarianism. I've talked about that, that there are those within the United States who want this country to become a totalitarian state or a nation country. And because they want their agenda pushed, they don't like other groups of people, other people's ideas, and they are willing to destroy the Constitution to achieve that goal. Okay, we just saw the recent memo that was exposed that talks about the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, which is which gives a woman a right to an abortion. Now, this is the court that's doing this, right? And because the majority of the judges on the Supreme Court are what we would call right-wing judges, we know for decades the right-wing party, which is the Republican Party, have been on a mission to overturn Roe v. Wade. This is why they will cheat. They have stacked the federal courts with judges who have that view of overturning Roe v. Wade. They claim to be very religious. They claim to be pro-life, but they're not pro-life. They are pro-birth. Okay? So I just want to read this because I think this is very, very important that you as TIs understand where some of these beliefs and idea come from. Okay? and understanding the personality of these individuals. Okay? So, at least when I was in grade school, we learned the very basics of how the Third Reich came to power in the early 1930s. Paramilitary gangs terrorizing the opposition, the incompetent and opportunistic of German conservative, the Reichstag fire, and we learned about the critical importance of propaganda. Okay? Propaganda. USTI should get familiar with that word. You should also get the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays. The deliberate misinformation of the public in order to sway opinion in mass and achieve popular support, or at least the appearance of it. While Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels purged Jewish and leftist artists and writers, he built a massive media infrastructure that played, writes CBS, probably the most important role in creating an atmosphere in Germany that made it possible for the Nazis to commit terrible atrocities against Jews, homosexuals, and other minorities. How did the minority party of Hitler and Goebbels take over and break the will of the German people so thoroughly that they would allow and participate in mass murder? Post-war scholars of totalitarianism, like Theodor Adorno and Hannah Arendt, asked the question over and over for several decades afterwards. The earliest studies on the subjects looked at two sides of the equation. Adorno contributed to a massive volume of social psychology called The Authoritarian Personality, which studied individuals predisposed to the appeals of totalitarianism. He invented what he called the F scale, F for fascism, one of several measures he used to theorize the authoritarian personality type. Arendt, on the other hand, looked closely at the regime of Hitler and Stalin and their functionaries, at the ideology of scientific racism, and at the mechanism of propaganda in fostering a curious, varying mixture of gullibility and cynicism in which each member is expected to react to the changing line statement of the leaders. So she wrote in her 1951 Origins of Totalitarianism, going on to elaborate that this mixture of gullible and cynicism is prevalent in all ranks of totalitarian movements. In ever-changing, incomprehensible world, the masses had reached the point where they would at the same time believe everything and nothing, think that everything was possible and nothing was true. The totalitarian mass leaders base their propaganda on the correct psychological assumption that, under such condition, one could make people believe the most fantastic statement one day and trust that if the next day they were given irrefutable proof of their falsehood, they would take refuge in cynicism. Instead of deserting the leader who had lied to them, they would protest that they had known all along that the statement was a lie and would admire the leader for their superior tactical cleverness. While the constant, often blatant lying, for one thing, it functions as a means of fully dominating subordinates who would have to cast aside all their integrity to repeat outrageous falsehood and would then be bound to the leader by shame and complicity. The great analysis of truth and language in politics, write McGill University political philosophy professor Jacob T. Levy, including George Orwell, Hannah Arendt, Václav Havel, can help us recognize this kind of lie for what it is, saying something obviously untrue and making your subordinates repeat it with a straight face in their own voice is a particularly startling display of power over them. It's something that was endemic to totalitarianism. Arente and others recognize, rightly, that being made to repeat an obvious lie makes it clear that you're powerless. She also recognized the function of an avalanche of lies to render a populace powerless to resist, the phenomenon we now refer to as gaslighting. The result of a constant and total substitution of lies for factual truth is not that the lie will now be accepted as truth and truth be deframed as a lie, but that the sense by which we take our bearing in the real world and the category of truth versus falsehood is amongst the mental means to this end is being destroyed. Just like today, many people believe lies that is true, right? Let me say that. Many people today believe that lies are true and the truth is a lie. So they got us thinking backwards. Yeah. That's what Dr. Amos Wilson would say. They got us thinking and behaving in a backwards manner. We too. Wait, where am I? Okay, here you go. So the epistemological ground thus pull out from under them. Most would depend on whatever the leader said, no matter its relation to truth. The central conviction shared by all ranks, Arente concluded, from fellow traveler to leader, is that politics is a game of cheating, and that the first commandment of the movement, the Führer is always right, is as necessary for the purposes of world politics, i.e., worldwide cheating, as the rule of military discipline, or for the purpose of war. We too, write Jeffrey Isaac at the Washington Post, live in dark times, an allusion to another of Arente sobering analysts. Even if they are different and perhaps less dark, Arente wrote Origin of Totalitarianism from research and observation gathered during the 1940s, a very specific historical period. Nonetheless, the book, Isaac remarked, raised a set of fundamental questions about how tyranny can rise and the dangerous form of inhumanity to which it can lead. Arente analysis of propaganda and the function of lies seem particularly relevant at this moment. The kinds of blatant lies she wrote of might become so commonplace as to become banal. We might begin to think they are an irrelevant sideshow. This, she suggests, would be a mistake. Now, as a target, we know that they spread a lot of lies. This is why they don't share with us what it is that's being said. It is left up to our assumption based off of how they target us. Okay? And again, based off of that assumption, they will surmise that, that is true, right? These are your low-level perps. But those that are the higher ups know that it's a lie. And even if it's based on truth, it is based on truth because they have set forth motion which you could not avoid because it was geared towards you. And the outcome they already knew. Okay? You have to understand that. One of the best show to watch, particularly on this, as I'm talking about, is called Game Show by Darren Brown, which you can find on YouTube. So there's nothing that happened to us as a TI that wasn't planned and executed. Okay? And So you have to understand that, okay? And you have to, like I said, you have to study this program that you're in. Um, if you can't, if you're willing to expose it, then do so, because it's important that other people know and understand what's being done. And I would ask that you keep the religious aspect out of it, because once you dive into that aspect of what you believe in your targeting, they will use that to discredit you. Okay. And it's funny too, because how they would use religion to try to bring you closer to their God or their Jesus. But the minute you start talking about it, as opposed to saying, well, God has ordained me to expose these corrupt individuals within law enforcement and the security agencies. See, they don't like that, because they want the perps to think that it is the same God that you as a TI talk about, the same Jesus, is the one that's doing this to you or giving them instructions to do this to you. So you just got to leave the religious aspect out of your targeting when you're trying to expose it. And I understand we may use certain phrases or words like let's see, trying to think. We might use words like religious indoctrination. We might use words like religious abuse, or satanic abuse, or satanic ritual abuse. But it's not, we're using the wrong word. It's not satanic ritual abuse. It is Christian ritual abuse. It is Islam ritual abuse. It is religious indoctrination, religious abuse, or being abused by religious followers. Okay? So understand that. Because the one thing they're very good at is psychological manipulation, okay, and lying. So they will make you look however way they want you to look, but you have to understand how to defend yourself against these sort of attacks. And you do that by studying. Okay. You can get a book on psychology. Okay. There's a free book you can find online, the PDF version of it. Actually, there are many. There are many. All right, that you can find. Let me see if I can pull up one here, just so that you guys can see what is I'm talking about. Okay, so if you do a Google search, all right, you can do Psychology 101 textbook, general psychology, human psychology. You can find PDF versions. So, for example, you have MIT, and here you have a book, right? And you can download it. It's in PDF form. Okay. And this is, again, a psychology book, right? So, you can find this online. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's see here. This is Introduction to Psychology. Okay, which again you can, and these are textbook, right? So you can find these things online, right? Let's say if you want to do okay, they got human psychology, the psychology of human thought. Okay, so you can find these books online. You can read them, you get a better understanding of how the human mind works when it comes to the psychological aspect of it. Okay. And to give you a better understanding. So again, there are many tools that are available to us that we can use, right? Though we may talk about being experimented on, we may be labeled as being crazy, delusional, or what have you. That's fine. You know, you can't help what people are going to say about you. You particularly if they're trying to hide crimes that they're committing against you, particularly if it's the state, if it's the U.S. government and the security agencies and law enforcement agencies. Okay, they are the people that are the governmental branches of this country and departments and institutions, and they have control over the so-called psychiatric boards, whether it be in hospitals, whether it be the American, the APA, right, the American Psychological Association, which put out the DMS, the DMSV, I think, or the DMS, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the DSM, you're right. So, you know, it's not to say that there's nothing we can do, but you have to understand who it is and what it is that we're fighting against here. Who and what is that we're trying to expose, all right, for the crimes that they've committed against us and continue to be to be done. The conspiracy to, you know, of our rights, our human rights, constitutional rights, and you know, just the right to be. All right. So, you know, I hope this video put a little bit of clarity on some things, exposes other things, and you know, the more people, or TIs I should say, who decide to tell the story to expose what's being done to them, is the better for all of us, because we are stronger in numbers than we are by ourselves, and that's part of the reason why they isolate us. Okay, it's part of the reason why they separate us, and to prevent us from coming in contact with each other. Okay, so with that being said, keep your head up as TIs, and you know, let's continue to expose and make others know exactly what's being done. Okay, so I'll talk to you guys on the next Target Individual Program, Target Individual Experience video.